So there you go. Whatever. We were talking about all kinds of stuff there. Ryan Gorman says Kansas City has had free transit since last year. Kansas City. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Scott Andrews says trains are the most efficient form of transportation. That's why the U.S. doesn't have many of them. Right. Right. Human Love Solidarity says Luxembourg became the first country to provide free public transport across its entire territory. Excellent. Luxembourg. Thanks for jumping in, guys, with that information. I appreciate it. Anyways, let's keep going. This I found to be hilarious. Someone on Twitter named Sana said, avoidable products you might not know are causing climate change, a thread. And then she had one post after that, the U.S. military. I'm going to like that too. That was it. That was her thread. I thought it was pretty hilarious. So everybody thought that she was going to start getting into like all these products that were terrible for the environment. And she said, the U.S. military. Yes, that is a product that is really bad for the environment. Basil Peterson, good point. Consumerism was created by Edward Bernays, and his advertising was based on focus groups and public relations instead of propaganda. Right. He was a main architect, if you will, builder of, our current consumerist society. I got a super chat in here. I don't know where it went. It was from Kuro, though. Thank you, Kuro, for the super chat. I really appreciate you. Let's move on. This is from Jeff Biradelli. Another warning, folks. Ready yourselves. This long stretch is going to be something. So he's talking about the heat wave that's happening this week. Extreme record-breaking heat dome on Saturday. The ridge at the 500 millibar pressure level raised above 6,000 meters. Warm air expands for perspective that seems to be at or above records for most of the Southwest U.S., including Midland and El Paso, Texas, pictured here. So if you're in this area, watch out. Moving on to this post from Scott from Scotland. He says, just watch this until the end. Heat in the Arctic is having a profound impact on sea ice melt, and this opens the door for runaway warming. This is an animation showing how much warmer or cooler the sea surface is compared to normal. So I think you guys can see that. You see how hot that is, especially in the eastern Arctic. Also looking like the western Arctic as well. Very warm water going up through the Bering Strait. This is going to June 20, or maybe into July. Oh, June 30th. That is frightening. Moving on. This is out of British Columbia. Figures in the BC greenhouse gas inventory released quietly before Christmas show emissions have risen for 4 of the last 5 years. So BC quietly releases emissions update that shows it'll blow 2020 climate target. Again, many countries not on track to meet their climate targets. Previously, the province released a full public report on emissions, including inventory methodology, every 2 years. But in December, the government released an Excel spreadsheet simply listing emissions figures for the second year in a row. The spreadsheet was published without any formal announcement or news release. By law, the province is required to reduce emissions 80% from 2007 levels by 2050. Well, let's give them a long, long time to do that because, we don't want to inconvenience anybody or we don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. In 2008, the province created a benchmark within that reduction, committing to get to 33% reductions by 2020. But that's good on them. But the new figures show BC is not on course to meet that 2020 target. Instead, emissions are only 2.1% lower than the baseline year of 2007 and are on the rise. So not anywhere close. Not anywhere close to that 33%. The government needs to take drastic steps if there is any hope of meeting targets designed to keep global warming below 2 degrees. Jens Viting of Sierra Club, BC, told Desmog Canada, adding, "It is distressing the emissions inventory was updated without a public announcement." But, if you don't want anybody to know the bad news, just don't let them know that there's any bad news. That is the official government position. Pretty much every government, that's their official position. If you don't want anybody to know that there is bad news, just don't tell them. You know what I'm saying? That's how that works. Lightning rods. Who knew there were heat waves inside the ocean? Who knew? Let's keep going, guys. This is pretty weird and concerning, and something that yet another wrinkle in the climate change story, if you will. There's so many factors to climate change, so many moving parts, right? There's, the ice, there's sea level rise, there's extreme weather events, there's, water vapor in the atmosphere, there's carbon in the ocean, there's methane, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these moving parts to climate change. Once you get into it, there's global dimming. Anyways, now there's night clouds or noctilucent clouds, or noctilucent. Excuse me. Let me get that straight. And this is from The Guardian. Rare night clouds may be warning signs of climate crisis. Noctilucent clouds on the edge of the atmosphere are increasingly seen outside of the polar regions, which I guess is where they're supposed to be, or, that's where they generally tend to appear. Something magical appeared at night over London and other parts of Britain on June 21st. Ripples of electric blue clouds shimmered in the twilight after sunset. These were noctilucent clouds, the highest clouds in the world, more than 80 kilometers or 50 miles up on the edge of space, and looked like something from another planet. Noctilucent clouds form in the mesosphere, the rarefied upper atmosphere with little moisture and intensely low temperatures. The scant water vapor there can freeze onto specks of smoke from meteors burning up in the atmosphere, creating the crystals that form noctilucent clouds. The mesosphere is coldest in summer, allowing the crystals to form. These clouds may also be warning signs of the climate crisis. They were first recorded in 1885 and were rarely seen for years afterwards, largely in polar regions. But in recent times, the clouds have appeared much further afield and are growing much brighter. Much of the moisture needed to form the clouds comes from, drum roll, methane, a potent greenhouse gas that produces water vapor when it breaks down in the upper atmosphere. And as methane pollution has increased, so noctilucent clouds have grown more common and more widespread. So not necessarily a threat in and of themselves, but a harbinger, if you will, of climate change. Did you guys see that? I guess you guys weren't seeing that. Maybe my button stopped working again. I don't know. Rich Diana, stop reporting the heat waves and it'll feel cooler. Yep. Yeah, it sounds like they're probably cool to see, right? I would like to see that, says Gene. LC makes sense. Polar phenomenons are spilling out. Right. So they're probably like just something that's, kind of visually pretty rare and also very cool to see, but maybe not something you want to see if you know that it means that climate change is, progressing apace. LC, I like to work in, all kinds of words when I can. Harbinger is one of them. Yeah, who knew? Noctilucent clouds, and they are caused by methane, or at least enhanced by methane. Let's move on to the last thing for this video I wanted to talk about. And let's see. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this. Airplanes are energy gluttons. Finite oil should be used for ships, trains, and trucks. This is from January 2nd, 2020. And I don't know, this is fairly long. Well, maybe it's not that long, but we'll see how long we can get into this. But this is good information nonetheless. Hold on one second. I want to see if this is showing up. Great. Preface. As oil declines and the energy crisis worsens, airplanes ought to be the first to go, since they are 600 times less energy efficient than large cargo ships. I'm going to read that again. As oil declines and the energy crisis worsens, airplanes ought to be the first to go, since they are 600 times less energy efficient than large cargo ships, 50 to 120 times less efficient than trains, and 7.5 to 15 times less efficient than trucks. Cars burn gasoline, trucks burn diesel, airplanes burn jet fuel, kerosene, each different fractions of a barrel of crude oil. Kerosene is the fraction of choice for a number of reasons. First, has a much higher flash point than gas, commonly around 464 Fahrenheit. Second, kerosene has a freezing point of minus 57 Fahrenheit, which is not uncommon at the high altitudes planes fly at. In fact, it's usually negative 67 Fahrenheit, but the kerosene doesn't freeze because the plane is flying through this cold air mass at hundreds of miles per hour. The speed of air over the wings creates friction, which usually heats the surfaces. Did you all know that? All that science that was going on there? I had no idea. Very educational. But I don't know if you can see this graph here. So kilojoules of energy used to carry 1 ton of cargo, 1 kilometer. 50 for oil tankers and cargo ships. 100 to 150 for smaller cargo ships. 250 to 600 trains. 360 for a barge. 2,000 to 4,000 for trucks. So trucks being, the least efficient of all the land crawlers. 30,000 for air freight. And if you really want to throw your money away, 55,000 for a helicopter. So you want to ship things by helicopter if you're really, if you really got money to burn. If you're really on the rich spectrum. Cars burn gasoline, trucks burn diesel, airplanes burn jet fuel. I already read that. United States air carriers burn through 17 billion gallons of jet fuel annually. The amount of fuel an airliner needs depends on many factors, including aircraft type, weight, and direction of travel. Here are some price estimates for 2019. Los Angeles International to Tokyo Narita. The Trans-Pacific hop uses an estimated 9,500 gallons of jet fuel at an estimated price of $19,190. New York JFK to Los Angeles International. This popular transcon flight uses an estimated 5,325 gallons of jet fuel at an estimated price of $10,757. The return to New York uses slightly less fuel, 5,075 gallons. Still $10,000. Chicago O'Hare to Miami Heading southbound, this flight operates using an estimated 2,350 gallons with an estimated cost of $4,747. On the northbound return, the cost estimate soars to $7,000 using an estimated 3,565 gallons. Denver International to San Francisco. Particular route, on average, aircraft fill up with an estimated 3,500 gallons of jet fuel, costing an estimated $7,000. Jet fuel is extracted from the middle distillates fraction and competes with the production of diesel. Aviation fuel is almost exclusively extracted from the kerosene fraction of crude oil. Today, global oil production is roughly 81.5 million barrels per day, which is equivalent to an annual output of 3,905.9 MT. I don't know what that is. Not sure what that means. Anybody know what MT stands for? Help me out, please. Aviation fuels include both jet fuel for turbine engines and aviation gasoline for piston engines. The dominant fuel is jet fuel originating from crude oil, as it is used in all large aircraft, or large aircraft, if you will. The conclusion to be drawn is that aviation fuel production is not a fixed percentage of refinery output. In 2006, aviation fuel was 6.3% of world refinery production. The kerosene fraction is an average of 8 to 10% of the crude oil, but all kerosene does not become jet fuel or diesel. Kerosene can also be used to decrease the viscosity of the heavy fractions of crude oil and is used as lamp oil in certain parts of the world. Today, the increasing addition of biofuels to diesel, this is terrible, is a problem for the aviation industry, a big problem. Biofuels, you don't want to use biofuels, especially when you're using them at that rate. One of the more common biodiesels is FAME, fatty acid methyl ester, I guess. FAME is not a hydrocarbon, and no non-hydrocarbons are allowed in jet fuel, except for approved additives, and is defined in the various international specifications as DEF Stan 9191 and ASTM-D 1655. Consequently, biofuels contaminated jet fuel cannot be utilized due to jet fuel standards. What? The problem with FAME is that it has the ability to be absorbed by metal surfaces. Diesel and jet fuel are often transported in a joint transport system, making it possible for FAME stuck in tanks, pipelines, and pumps to desorb to the jet fuel. The limits for contamination of jet fuel with FAME is 5. Okay, so they're talking about additives to diesel. Biofuels additives to diesel is contaminating jet fuel. Okay, didn't even know that. I hope that was informative for y'all, as it was for me. But again, the level of pollution that planes spew into the air, the amount of fossil fuels that they use, everything about the airline industry is terrible for the planet. And there used to be kind of this idea, I remember maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that there was a big kind of debate around, if flying was better than driving, or flying was better than other kinds of transport, because there's so many people on a plane, and therefore you divide that carbon footprint among everybody on the plane. But I don't really hear that argument much anymore, because it's fairly silly. Because planes fly all the time. Half-empty planes fly all the time. There are ghost planes that fly in order to keep routes open for certain airlines, right? They'll fly a ghost plane just so that they have activity going on between these certain routes. But all in all, the airline industry and airplanes in general are super destructive to the planet, and there's not a lot of Again, the alternative or clean, air travel is really not available at the moment. Oh, metric ton. Okay, thank you. Megaton. If people were guessing on the MTs, actually, I can go back and kind of hold on. Let me see. I guess it is metric ton. Okay, we'll go with that. Thank you, Jody Connolly. Uh, MT is million tons in article. Okay. Oh, so million tons. Got it. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. You guys saw that. You knew what I was talking about. All right. Okay. Yeah, the whole the biodiesel thing to me is just, again, that's another I guess discussion that people are somehow still having some parts of the world that it's okay to grow biofuels, grow corn for biofuels, which is, again, doubly bad for the planet. I mean, just on many magnitudes of bad for the planet. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below: PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.